in my kitchen. I've got a lot of technology stuff around because that's what I do for a living. I don't cook for a living, but I do like to cook, and I cook almost every night just because I like to eat too. So the Instant Pot is something that's really made a lot of things simple. Soups, things like chicken and dumplings, chili. I've done a few roast things that you would typically do in a pressure cooker, or well, it does a lot of things. There's a big book of things that the Instant Pot will do. I only use 2 buttons on the thing. One is to saute, and that's to cook vegetables or to brown meats before you make a stew, for example. And the other is the pressure cook setting. So if you have the book for your Instant Pot and you want to go through it, you'll be beyond what I do already. But it's very simple to do. Actually, I've done 2 recipes. One of them's done already and one behind us. So I'll show you the finished product. I did it early so that I could open one and finish, because this one will take probably about 40 minutes or so once I start. So anyway, I've got an Instant Pot here. Let me change my camera views. You should see the kitchen. I've got wires and routers and 2 cameras and tripods and everything all over the place, but I've got a camera set up so that you can look right down at my cutting board and into the pot here. What I'm going to do is plug the pot in. Like I say, I only use 2 buttons on it. You'll not be able to see real well the buttons. I'll turn it back. This particular model has a button that's just labeled saute. All of them have a way to turn on the saute feature, and what that does is just turns on the burner in the bottom of the pot and makes it hot. This is a simple recipe. Let it finish beeping. It's a simple recipe for chicken and dumplings. You can make chicken soup if you left out the dumplings and added more broth to it. I've made chicken and rice like this, chicken noodle soup just like this. Pretty simple. I don't even follow a recipe at this point, but we'll send one out that's very close to what I'm doing here. So what I'll do, we've got the saute feature started. This will heat up, and it'll heat up pretty quickly. I'm going to drop in enough oil just to kind of cover the bottom because I'm going to saute some onions to start with. So a couple onions. This onion was huge, so I'm just going to use 1, but I'm just going to dice it up. I've peeled and prepped the vegetables already, except for chopping them. So I just thought I'd show you the size and everything of the chops. I just make little squares out of a whole onion. If your onions are small, of course, use 2. And I can hear that is in there sizzling already. So it takes only that long to get hot enough to throw onions in. I usually would throw one in there and just make sure it's hot enough. I'll give it another second here. So the ingredients I have already cut up and prepped here. Let me hold them under here so you can see them. I've just put them on a plate. I've got 3 cloves of garlic. I've got a couple of stalks of celery, and I split them lengthwise because they were really wide. So I split them down so we won't have big chunks. I've got 4 carrots that are peeled. I've cut the ends off of them already. So I've done all this prep work. I threw away all the peelings. I got rid of all of that stuff. So we're just ready to go. So these are starting to sizzle away in there. So it sounds like the oil is hot enough. I'm just going to dump all this onion in here. And we want to saute the onion first because it might be a little crunchy if we try to, steam it. You want the onions to be softened. So while those are going, the next thing that's going to go in is some garlic. So I've got 3 decent sized pieces of garlic. If the recipe calls for 2, I put in 3. I like garlic. So, and what I'll do, I've peeled the fresh garlic. I guess you can use garlic powder if you want, but I like to saute garlic, fresh garlic, along with the onion. It smells good, tastes better to me anyway. So I'm gonna dice this into pretty small pieces. You could use a food processor if you wanted to, but I've got a good knife. So that's ready to go as soon as the onions are done. no real science to this. We're just going to cook the onions until they start to be a little bit translucent. If they brown in there, it's fine. One of the ingredients that I have here are the dumplings. Any part of this you could go hog wild if you wanted to, but this is going to be easy. So I bought frozen dumplings. They're in the freezer section. These were at Kroger. These are called Mary Hill dumplings, and they're stripped dumplings. I've seen a few recipes where you could use biscuit dough, roll it out, flatten it. You can even make your own out of flour and water. Pretty simple to do. Those are no mess dumplings right there. They're frozen. I let them thaw a little bit just to make them easier to get out of the packet. But they're still a little bit frozen there, and they're all layered in wax paper, so they're easy to handle. The other thing that I have is chicken breast, and I'll show you in a second. The Instant Pot is pretty easy to use. If you forget to, or haven't, for example, defrosted chicken, you can make this with chicken that's rock hard, frozen solid, right out of the freezer, put it in, and use the same times and everything for frozen chicken as thawed. I thawed it overnight. You don't have to worry about frozen chicken. So these onions here, I don't know if you can see well or not, but they're starting to be a little bit clear looking. So I'm going to add the garlic in. You don't want to burn the garlic or toast the garlic. It gets real bitter if you do that. So you just put it in just long enough to kind of sweat it a little bit. The next thing to go in is celery. So while that garlic is getting ready, I'll take these celery strips and cut them up into pieces. And if you can hear, that saute feature there is not a weak saute. That thing gets hot, so it's like a hot pan. So I'm keeping up with getting stuff ready to put in because I don't want that garlic to burn and I don't want the onions to burn. So anyway, it's a good. It's like a hot frying pan going there. All right, so that garlic's only been in about 30, 40 seconds, I guess. I can smell it in there. I can smell the onion. I was going to do this live, but actually I kind of like this a little bit better because you can see up close. Everybody can see right up into the pot and everything. You can see me cutting and all that, and it's right here. And I'm in my own kitchen. I got my cutting board I'm used to. I got my knife that I'm used to. So now I've got celery in there, and same deal. I'm going to stir that in. So while that's softening a little bit, it gives me time to cut these carrots up. So I've got 4 carrots. Like I say, they're all prepped already. I'm going to cut them into little bits here. All right, and that's frying away in there. So I'll go ahead and throw the carrots in on top of that. So I've got a good vegetable base going here for our, basically a chicken soup with dumplings in it. Now the next part is some chicken broth. Now you can use canned broth, you can use the box broth, you could cook a chicken with herbs all day long and make your own chicken broth. Like I say, you can go hog wild on any part of this. What I use is, and I've gotten to use this over time, Mexican restaurants use this, a lot of Mexican recipes call for this. It's powdered boyan. My dad uses the little cubes, and I always give him a hard time because those little cubes, it takes me longer to get the foil off of those dumb things. than it does to do anything else. So this just takes a teaspoon per cup. And if you can see, I'll carefully measure out 4 teaspoons. You can get out your measuring spoons if you want to, but that's pretty good there. I'm going to make 4 cups of broth this way. I've got a whisk. I'm going to step over here and turn on some hot water. As you can see, like I say, you can get as fancy as you want with chicken broth. This does fine for this recipe for me, and does fine for a lot of other things. But just like that, I got 4 cups of chicken broth. So this is all starting to look like it's little brown bits going from the onions that have been in there longest. Carrots are starting to soften up a little bit. So when you're satisfied that that's probably cooked long enough, which is about now, I'm just going to dump the broth in on top. All right, and at this point, I'm going to turn it off. This has a cancel button on it that turns everything off. So it is off right now because the next thing I'm going to do is finalize the ingredients, get out of the fridge. We've got huge chicken breasts here. See these things. Jerry found these at Aldi. They've been hard to find, but these things are enormous. So if you only use 3, if they're smaller, you can use 4, but you see how big these guys are. I'm just gonna drop them in. They can be frozen solid, rock hard. I haven't trimmed them or anything because we're gonna shred them, and I'll show you in this other pot in a second the finished product. But I've got 3 huge chicken breasts in there. Get rid of this. I don't know about you, but I'm funny about chicken. If I touch raw chicken, I've got to wash my hands with hot water and soap. All right, so now comes the dumpling part. Well, actually, let's put the herbs in first so it gets on the chicken. So all I add to this, the recipe that I'll send you calls for poultry seasoning as well. I've never used poultry seasoning, but I guess you could. And also salt. I'll add some salt, only about a teaspoon, about that much, because sometimes that chicken broth is salty enough already, and it depends on the type that you use. That powdered stuff that I use isn't all that salty, but I'm still a little light with the salt. It's better to add it later than to have salty chicken and dumplings. So I've got rubbed sage. I'm going to put about a healthy teaspoon of that. Again, I just put it out in my hand. I've got measuring spoons, but I've just gotten out of the habit of doing that kind of stuff for this anyway. I've got thyme, maybe a little less on the thyme. It'll take over if you put too much in. So about 3/4, half teaspoon of that. All of this is in that recipe. And some black pepper. Again, a good heavy teaspoon black pepper. I'll stir that around a bit. It's all over the chicken. It's going to all boil together anyway, but it's not all in one lump now. We'll do that. I'm going to add the dumplings. Again, these are called Mary Hill dumplings. There's a variety of different dumplings. These are flat ribbon dumplings. Some people like fluffy ones. You make them out of biscuit dough. My dad makes dumplings. He calls them slippery dumplings, and he makes them out of flour and water, and they're big and wide and thick, but these are just little ribbon strips. And I'm just going to pile them in till it looks like enough. I think I put about 12 or 15 of them in the other batch over there, and it just looked like enough. These come 3 per layer. That was 3. And I just kind of place them so they're not crumpled up. and they're not right on top of each other, so we don't want anything to stick together. Right, and only because there's only 3 more, and I feel bad about throwing away dumplings. I'll put the last 3 in there, but I might have stopped if it wasn't like that. All right, so that was as hard as it was. We've just made chicken and dumplings, and I'll show you the rest of it in just a second here. What I'm gonna do is put the top on. How these things work is there's arrows. There's an arrow on the lid and an arrow on here. It's just like any other pressure cooker, and I always try to put it on backwards first. I didn't that time. I got it on right the first time, but slip it on in the proper notches. Turn it, it makes a sound. This vent lid right here, all of them are a little bit different. This one is sealed in the middle and it vents on the side. So the first time I used this, as careful as I was, I heard the thing hissing about 10 minutes after I'd turn it on, and I had left the vent open. So I set it to pressure cook, and it wasn't ever going to pressure cook because all the pressure of steam was just coming right out. You have to have this in the proper sealed position, and it stays sealed like this. This operates very much like the old-fashioned pressure cooker with the wobbler on top. This is the wobbler, only nothing escapes. The Instant Pot is totally sealed, so it's silent while it cooks. I remember having that pressure cooker on the stove and messing with the temperature to get it to, wobble just right, but you don't have to mess with any of that with one of these. So I've got the top on. I'm not going to start it here. I'm going to swap them, and I'll tell you what I'm doing when I get it over here, because we're done with this one. Let me go back on the wide view for a second here, just for a second. Woo, my camera's spinning around. Okay, there we are. As you see, I've got a whole lineup of Instant Pots over here. This first one here is one that's done already. I'm going to unplug it and bring it over here and show you all what it looks like, the finished product. But I'll start this other one first. Now, I said before I only use 2 buttons basically on this, even though it's got, it looks like 8 or 10 buttons on it. It says soup and all kind of stuff on it. Steam, slow cook, a lot of stuff you can do with the Instant Pot. I only use it to saute and pressure cook manually, which is a manual setting. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is set it on manual. This then there's a plus and minus. I'm going to set this for 7 minutes. Okay, 7 minutes manual. And this one, you don't have, there's no start button or anything. After it sits there for 30 seconds, I think, it figures that I'm finished. And see, it says on. So I know that the pressure release is in the proper spot. I've set it for 7 minutes, and it's on manual, which is just a pressure cook. Now, Instant Pot. First couple times I used it, we waited for dinner for a while because I thought 7 minutes meant that it was going to be done in 7 minutes. It's not done in 7 minutes. It takes it a good 15, 20 minutes, I guess, to heat up to the proper temperature. Then it counts down for 7 minutes. And then, according to the recipe that you might find, it might say slow release or fast release. So fast release means that you're going to use the knobs on the top of here. Let me change my camera back and show you this other one that's already done. Slow release would mean that you just let it sit until the pressure is gone by itself, which means it's cooled off and it's let its pressure off without you messing with it at all. So that's a slow release method. Manual release means that you're gonna, I have this one's not mine, so, oh, this says push. Okay, there is no steam coming out of this. Does this mean this doesn't happen? Yes, apparently this one has released already. So it took it a few minutes. This finished about the time we started our call. So it's been there for, well, 25 minutes it's been sitting there. So I guess it has released itself naturally. But I'm real cautious, like with any pressure cooker. You don't want to open this lid if there's any pressure. So I've got, this is down, everything is released. There's a silver button on this one that is, it pops up when there's pressure, and it is definitely down. You see me check it about 6 times now because I don't want this thing to go crazy if I take the lid off, but it goes off very much like that. Okay, now we got all of those dumplings are on top, and they should separate. And what I need to do is just stir them carefully so I don't tear up the dumplings. And we've got the chicken breasts. There's still a hole in here. One thing I didn't get out was fork to pull these out. I'll pull these chicken breasts out and put them on the cutting board. And you see it's falling apart. So that's with 7 minutes in the Instant Pot. And I can shred this up. And I'm going to shred it up and put it back in there. And I guess, well, that'd be a neat little business is if you dropped off your Instant Pot in the morning, come by and pick it up in the pot, it's still hot. There you go. But it looks like we're going to have 2 pots of chicken and dumplings at our house tonight. But I do have a young boy named Will who can eat like 3 people. He's 18 years old. So usually at dinner time at some point I'll say, "Where did that go?" And he'll say, "I ate it already." So again, I didn't trim this chicken, so there's a bit of fat and stuff here and there that I'll toss to the side, but generally the chicken is just falling apart. Completely done. Smells wonderful. It's got that chicken broth. It's got a nice color to it in there. It's got the herbs, the carrots, the celery. All of that is done. All right, so there's one more. And after that, I'm going to show you one more thing. I've got a 3rd Instant Pot over there. This guy out. I hear you up there. I don't hear you on the speakers. I don't know what you're saying. What? Oh, the peas. Okay. I was saying you don't need to tell everybody that, but she's saying put the peas in. So I've got a half bag of frozen peas sitting here. I'm not going to put peas in the other one, but if you like peas, now is when you add them. You don't want to pressure cook the peas because they'll disintegrate if you pressure cook them. I think it's a really neat use of the technology also. Like I started to say before, the company I work for makes equipment that does this. We're always on video conferencing or video conferences. My boss is in Utah. My coworkers, I've got them in Vancouver and Dallas, and there's nobody really close here. A lot of them up and down from New York and New Jersey. But we talk to each other and we see each other face to face every day. I'm gonna get used to it. Now this setup that I did for the kitchen here is using a conference phone. It's a big triangular phone. It's made for a conference table that goes into a boardroom. So it sounds great in here, and you can hear me like I was talking right into it, and it's just sitting over on the counter. The cameras that I'm using, I think you saw one spin around a bit when I turned it on. That's a camera that's made for a conferencing room that will follow you around as you speak. And this little camera that I'm using here, camera that's used like what you have on top of a laptop, and the ability to tie them all together and use them for something like this, I think is just pretty cool. So anyway, frozen peas in on top, stir them in. You don't have to do a whole lot to peas, and after they sit for a minute, it's going to be perfect. So we got a nice pot of chicken and dumplings here if anybody's ready for lunch. So I'll move that to the side and do the next part. It's 11:32. I think we're doing real good with time here. So the only other thing, or the other thing we wanted to look at, was something I was reading online. That's where I get a lot of recipes anyway. I'll think of something that I might like to do or have, and look up recipes online. Just look on the internet for stuff. And I ran across something where somebody said they did hard-boiled eggs in the Instant Pot. And I thought that was kind of silly. Why don't you just put them on the stovetop in boiling water? You're going to dirty a pot. But you know what? A lot of times if I want hard-boiled eggs, I don't want to stand in the kitchen and wait for the water to boil and then pull them out and see that they're done, and measure the time that it takes for them to get done, and then take them out and all that. So I discovered if you do them in the Instant Pot, it's so easy, and all you do is turn the thing on and forget it. And when you come back, you have a pot full of boiled eggs and you haven't stood there at all. So I'll show you how quick this is. I'm going to plug in this third. We got 3 Instant Pots going here in the kitchen. Plug that in. I'm going to measure out about 1.5 cups of water. You don't have to submerge the eggs in the Instant Pot. Just, I've got the wire rack in the bottom too. All of these come with this wire rack because you saw how hot it gets, and it does get that hot on the bottom when you put the lid on when it's building up steam, and you don't want those eggshells sitting right on that hot surface. This also holds them in one place so they don't go rumbling around and break before they're cooked. So I've got the rack in there. I've got about 1.5 cups of water. It's going to make a loud sound. I'm just going to take some raw eggs and place them carefully around in the rack. All right, I've got 9 of them in there. I could fit more if I wanted to. 9 hard-boiled eggs. We'll figure out what to do with them. I love them on salads and stuff, and they're pure protein, no carbohydrates, all that kind of good stuff. So I've got 9 eggs, 1.5 cups of water on the wire rack. Boom, boom, boom. Put the lid on. Let me turn this and see if you can see what's going on here. I'm going to press again. The 2 keys that I use are the manual key. I'm going to put it on manual. This one says 30 minutes. I don't want to do eggs for police. Make sure I got the right button. Oh, I've got saute. I did. The manual button's right next to the saute button. I don't want to saute eggs. So I pressed manual, and the time, I'm going to knock it down to 4 minutes, like that. I go do something else, and when I come back, later on. I'll have 9 hard-boiled eggs in here, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to stand here and wait for the water to boil and time them and set them in the sink and all that kind of stuff. It's done. So it's that hard to do hard-boiled eggs. Okay, so I guess at this point, I'm showing you finished product, how to do chicken and dumplings from scratch. That's over there cooking. I can hear the pressure building up. You probably can't see it from where you are, but it just says on still. The timer, the countdown hasn't started yet. When it gets hot enough, it'll say 7, and it'll count down from 7 down to 0, and then it goes into its release thing where you can manually release the steam or just let it cool off by itself. And it'll be done just like the other one was done. So, Jerry, I don't know what to do, or what you want to do at this point. You want to open up for questions, or are you done with me, or tell me what to do?
So yeah, if anybody has any questions, I guess we could answer simple questions right now. How about I'm going to unmute everybody.
What's the word?
Okay, so I have unmuted everybody, so we can.
Hey, George.
Okay, so only talk if somebody else is not talking. So if somebody has a question, you can ask one at a time. So Sharon, did you have a question?
No, I just said hello, George.
Oh,
Oh, hi, Howie.
okay.
I have a question.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Marge.
I have a question. That little thing on the top that controls the pressure, like when you did the hard-boiled egg, did you have that on or off, or is that?
Yeah, it's set to
automatic?
seal. Right, good question. I didn't pay attention to it at all, but it's on this one, it's the center position, which is sealed. So it won't pressure cook unless it is on the sealed position, and we are going to pressure cook the eggs to cook them. So it's sealed.
Looks like a fun device. I might have to get one.
I didn't want one, to tell the truth. I had a philosophical objection to it because it didn't seem like cooking. You know, I want pans on the stove and fire under them and throw it. This just seems too automatic. It's a machine. It's like a bread maker, or it seemed that way to me anyway. But you can get creative with it, and it is things come out. They come out great. It's just that you don't have all that pot and pan thing going on. It is automatic steam and everything. So I got over that pretty quick.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just don't forget how to cook.
I have a
I've
question.
got my smoker outside. You know, I like to do the smoking thing.
Okay, Ann has a question. Okay, go ahead, Ann.
Do those come in different sizes?
Yes, they do. These are the big ones. There is a smaller one. I've only seen one size smaller. There's 3 sizes.
For 2 people, that's big, and I'm just thinking about, something smaller for 2 people.
Yeah, I agree. Like this pot, that batch that I just made only fills this one up about halfway, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So yes, they do make a smaller one, and this takes up a cabinet to store it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We're going to see the finished product, the eggs.
Oh,
Are
So-
we going to see the finished product of the eggs?
Well, probably not, because no, actually these eggs are just starting to heat up. They'll probably be done past our time. It'll take about another 20 minutes, but I can tell you what they'll look like.
They won't be colored?
They won't be colored or anything. I guess you could do a Easter thing, but we'll do it in your Instant Pot, okay? Another thing about the eggs that it does in here, I don't know what it is, but they peel beautiful. I guess because they've been pressure cooked, the shell definitely separates. I've never had that problem where the shell sticks to them. So they come out perfect.
Will they be too hot to handle?
Yes, they do get hot. So a lot of times if they're still hot, I'll set them in the sink and pour some ice over them and